What I want to do now is probably the second to last step in the river. I've got a lot of texture in here already in the river, but there are rocks and so on in here. And of course, when the water runs forward, you're going to get spillover, and the rocks aren't going to do it, the casting's not going to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put blobs of modeling paste on the river in random spots that will represent a rock and the water just flowing over it, and then we'll have streaks of bubbles and so on to give it the sense that there is motion going forward. Well, I have to tell you, this is all experimental. I've not done this before, but I thought it was worth trying. Took my palette, I put some modeling paste in here, which of course will not go transparent. I've added a little bit of dye to it, and took a little scoop of it and just dropped blobs on here as if there's a rock and it's tumbling over the rock. And there, but what I'm really going to do is stipple and dab in around the waterfall with the end of the brush, as if this is going to be a lot of effervescence from the water rushing over the waterfall. And of course you got it coming down in the sides, and you're going to get a little bit on the face of the rock as well. And I'll do that in all the fall areas. So you know, you're going to have something coming down here, so you're going to end up with bubbles and so on, and lots of turbulence. And I want to run streaks so that there's a sense of motion coming forward as it comes towards the edge of the waterfall. Of course, you're going to end up with what appears to be water bubbling over. And this is going to be in behind everything, of course, and you've got splashing going on top of the rocks. On these little ledges, you got splashing going on. Up in the corner here, we've got a spilling over on the side here. So we'll lift some of the modeling paste, which is almost like paint, and it'll come down into there and splash down, really splash down on this rock down here, and dribble down the face. So you got a lot of this happening, what I think is happening as it descends down. Lots of splashing going on. That creates a lot of action. Brings the water to life. Gives a sense of motion. And of course that'll be toned down as we put dye into the casting resin as well. This is the end of the next step here, where I put the modeling putty in here in blobs, and I've packed a lot in at the base of the waterfall where theoretically there's lots of bubbles and so on, and I'll show you more what I'm going to do with that later. And of course there's lots of bubbles created as the water is churning up and flowing down, so this gives a sense of motion and where there's a lot of effervescence. The other thing I like to use is another product. These are little puffers, and it has essentially like a sparkles. As you can see here, it gives you these little sparkles, and I put that in wherever there's water, because what it looks like is it adds, it appears to be sunlight reflecting off the bubbles in the water, and it's kind of a neat effect. You have to be very subtle, very delicate with it. You don't need a lot of it. But what it does, it creates that effect of sunlight glittering on the water, especially at the base of the falls. We can put a lot in there because you're going to get a lot of sparkle and twinkle. There are many colors. There's blue, white, turquoise, and so on. And I have a little bit of everything, so I just throw mixtures of it. Perhaps you can see that here in this area here. You see this sort of tinsel effect, twinkling effect as the light hits it. It's more evident up close, but hoping the video will actually show it as the water tumbles down. And my next step is to use some 5-minute epoxy, and I think I mentioned this before. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to build up some little dams behind the rocks and on the rocks, so that I have a means of holding the water back when I'm pouring it, so that I have a control over the amount of dam that's there, so that it doesn't get out of control, which it can so easily do. The trestle's not, or the bridge I should say, is not in yet, but it's starting to have a three-dimensional look, as you can see from these scenes here. Then we'll continue working on the waterfall.